Welcome to Podcast on Infinite Earths, an unofficial DC Studios podcast. I'm your host, Tyson.
And I'm your host, Porter.
And we're writers, editors, and part-time filmmakers who love superheroes. Alrighty, everybody. Today we're going to be breaking down the Suicide Squad, but first we want to get into kind of the post-credit scene of Wonder Woman that we didn't break down last time, the Supergirl teaser, which is crazy exciting, and also the perhapsable purchase of Warner Bros. From Netflix.
Yeah, so Wonder Woman 1984 had a post-credit scene. If you guys remember, we were talking about Asteria, the lady where Wonder Woman gets like her cool golden armor from. And they have that flashback and you don't really see her face. Well, in this, you kind of just see her walking through the street. She saves a baby or something. And this mom's like, oh, let me thank you. And she turns around and it's Linda Carter, who played the Wonder Woman in the TV show way back when. And it's like a fun cameo, and it sort of, I don't know, in my opinion, it kind of tries to justify the existence of that flashback scene that we talked about in the previous episode, where we were kind of like, you could cut it. You also did explain that it does like the lasso shows the truth, which it's set up, but also like they could have found another way to do that. I don't know.
Just another moment that, was unnecessary. I mean, it was a long movie.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I can always appreciate a nod to the OG. It felt gratuitous a little bit. Just that I don't know. The cameo just detracted from the movie. It would have been better if she was just a side player in the movie. I mean, for instance, in the Superman movie, the most recent one, Christopher Reeve, who's deceased, his son was one of the reporters in that movie. And it's just like a small Easter egg for those that know. But once again, just a little nod to like the OG, which I absolutely respect and appreciate. This one just felt super like, hey, look at us, we did it.
I'm kind of with you. Like, maybe if in the flashback they showed the face and it was her, then it would have been like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, the best part about the post-credit scene is the music.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like pretty much just her doing like a small, like catching something and then just a really long close-up on her.
Yeah, and she like winks at I don't know.
It's
not the best post-credit scene.
It's strange.
I still think the best post-credit scene we've gotten, which is funny, I have to really think hard about them. I really think my favorite one would be the first Suicide Squad one, where it's Ben Affleck and Amanda Waller meeting up. I don't know, that one, I think that one just made the most sense to me.
It absolutely had some weight and context of the universe, right? And it felt like it was setting up something.
Yeah, but big news. So as the day we're recording this, the Supergirl teaser trailer came out. And it's a lot of fun. I think it does a good job of showing what's different about Supergirl compared to Superman, right?
Absolutely. I love the almost similarities that they had to the Superman trailer, where the score felt very cinematic and epic, and a lot of the action was excellent, but they really highlighted just kind of her like Gen Z punk rock, not super put together style. And I, for one, am all for it, man.
Right. I feel like it's such a contrast to a Superman that's very confident and sure of himself to kind of a more teenage vibe, right?
Yeah. Somebody who's trying to figure, I mean, that line where she's talking about, here's to year 23, maybe this will be, better than the rest. And she's like, that's like a high bar to clear.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like some of us can relate to that.
Totally.
Yeah, honestly, just a ton of fun. And I like that they really kind of kept the villain like shrouded, if that makes sense, right? I mean, we get almost just a shadowy figure of Lobo.
Right. It's not like a fully lit, like, this is Jason Momoa as Lobo.
Right. And most of the like bad guys that we see seem to be like henchmen or maybe like a lieutenant in the army kind of vibes, right? But never like the big bad. My assumption is Brainiac.
Right, because like you see the city getting lifted up, and
yeah, like
that's
that
kind
is
of Brainiac's
precisely
thing.
His MO.
And it's super tied into Supergirl's origin story, right? Like we watched that, what was it called? Superman Unbreakable, I think was the animated one, where that tied into the Supergirl story, right? Like
Absolutely.
Brainiac and everything.
No, it would make complete sense for him to come into this. And that being the case, or likely being the case, I just love that he wasn't even shown in the trailer.
Yeah. There was one character that was shown that I had to look up. Well, technically two, but so the first one is the girl that has like the sword, and she's like pretty young, and her
Sort of
name
given like sidekick vibes.
exactly. And when I had first Googled it, people were saying like katana, and I was like, what's she doing in like space, right? That doesn't make complete sense. So then I looked a little bit harder, and her name is Ruth Mary Knoll, but both Ruth and Mary have like an E at the end.
Huh.
I don't know. Basically, they said like her whole deal is that she's on a planet where Supergirl likes to party, and she's like seeking vengeance because her father left her a sword and her father got killed by this guy named Krem of the Yellow Hills, which I obviously don't know much about this area of the DC universe, but Krem of the Yellow Hills, I guess, was shown in the trailer. He's the guy with like the spots all over his face. He kind of looks like a Hellraiser guy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess he could be like the side main villain, right? Kind of like the Superman clone to Lex Luthor, to like, he's kind of like,
Absolutely.
he's the main conflict, but until like Brainiac shows up. Or
Almost
something
like the Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Oh,
Where
yeah.
he's kind of an antagonist until, it kind of becomes there's the bigger bad.
For sure. For sure.
No, that's cool. And I like that in the style of James Gunn, he's introducing characters that people are pretty freaking unfamiliar with. I feel like that just gives him a lot of width to get creative and have fun with it, kind of flesh out characters how he wants to. Because the only people that would be upset are those that are like really deep into the comics and really care about it being true to the comics.
I was going to say, like, that's a tough overlap, right? Because you're either kind of a snob about it being perfectly accurate, but you're not super deep into the comics, or you're super deep into the comics, and I could see you being like, I'm just happy they're including them, right? Like,
Absolutely.
that's just cool.
Absolutely.
And maybe like we were talking about with some other characters in this watch through, or just on this podcast as a whole, it might be a character from, the 60s, 70s that is like super goofy, but they're able to translate it into live action, right? Like we discussed, something like Cheetah, or as we're about to discuss, characters like Polka Dot Man or King Shark, right? Which are generally kind of goofier characters when they were invented, but they translated them well.
Absolutely.
It might be one of those cases, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, I know who he is in the comics, but they kind of did a good job. But I can't say I know enough to really share that sentiment, but
they're definitely newer people to us, but I mean, from the looks of this trailer, I think it'll be an excellent follow-up to the Superman movie.
For sure. And I love that they, in big letters showed the director. His name is, I'm going to butcher this, Craig Gillespie. He's directed some really fun movies, I, Tonya, Cruella, and Dumb Money.
Wow.
Very, very well done movies. So I'm excited. He clearly knows how to handle a cast, and I know that as we've discussed, they didn't start production on this movie until the script was good to go.
Yeah.
And that just made this whole thing go a lot smoother. And I'm super excited.
No, yeah. I mean, with a list of movies like that, I can't help but trust that this will be like an absolute winner, because those were not only movies that I loved, but immensely popular.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I feel like that's a good director to have backing your movie, right? And like I said, I'm very happy that they put it in like big letters. They're showing it off, right? It's not just James Gunn that they're going to show off, right? Hopefully they're super proud of everyone that they put behind these movies.
Absolutely. So yeah, fun to get like kind of the kickoff of, different directing, kind of see where this universe starts shaping up to be.
Yeah. Last thing, it's going crazy right now. Netflix put out a bid for Warner Brothers, and I even got an email from Netflix being like, yeah, we're acquiring Warner Brothers, like it's happening.
Whoa.
And then Paramount's doing like a counter offer, and it's kind of this weird, like they've been in a bidding war, but now it's like really ramping up to be like a real thing. And Warner Brothers is like actually looking at options.
Wow.
It's a lot of people are really upset about this because Netflix is notorious for obviously not having a lot of theatrical releases. And when they do, it's like a 2-week limited release.
Yep.
You know, for the instance of Wake Up Dead Man, which is the new Knives Out, we were fortunate enough we got to catch it in theaters, but it's a very small window. And the Frankenstein movie that they just came out, that I'm sure they're going to, and Jay Kelly, which is another one that they are probably going to try and push to win some Oscars, had a very short theatrical run. I missed it, and I'm kind of bummed because I'm watching Frankenstein and the quality is quite poor in low-lit situations. And I'm watching the Frankenstein movie and I'm like, I'm really enjoying this. But holy crap, am I so mad I didn't see this in a theater, right?
Yeah.
And I will never get that chance.
Right.
And because there was no marketing for it, right? There was no like, it's in theaters. It's just kind of like a soft release, just to almost like a check mark of like, yeah, we released it in theaters. So people are kind of worried that that's going to bleed over into Warner Brothers, because then you got some of the biggest properties in the world, right? You got the Godzilla Monsterverse, you got Harry Potter, you've got the DC universe, and it's a big worry for a lot of people, as opposed to Paramount, who still consistently puts out a lot of movies in theaters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they are quite literally credited with saving movies with Top Gun Maverick and the Mission Impossible movies. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Things that are
they
just kind
care.
of revitalizing the supposedly dead theaters.
Yeah. So it's such a tough, I don't know what's going to come of it. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I have seen posts about this, and it seems concerning because there were talks about how Netflix is really pushing that theaters are dead, and they were showing statistics that, you know, as of late, theaters are actually really thriving. They have a lot of big movies that have come out. People are like wanting to go back and have that experience. They've recognized that streaming is fine and all, but you know, with the unholy amount of content you have at home and the viewing experience that you can have in the theater, like, it makes a difference, right? It's kind of that, you know, listening to music versus a live show sort of thing.
Totally. I mean, I went and saw Zootopia 2 with my wife on Tuesday, and, you know, like, the cheap Tuesday tickets were obviously a factor in this, but our theater was absolutely packed, and it was a big theater, and that does add to the experience, for better or for worse, but
absolutely,
it's part of it, right?
Absolutely. So I think it's a little worrying that maybe Netflix is pushing that theaters are dead, because obviously they would love to make more money through streaming. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are specifically, numbers they make in streaming versus numbers they would make from a theatrical release.
That's the thing, is they don't really release that, and it's really hard to quantify, right? Because let's say 10 million views of a movie that released on Netflix doesn't necessarily equate to 10 million tickets bought, right? Because there's a difference between I'm going to go pay for a ticket as opposed to I'm already paying for a streaming service. I have nothing better to do. This movie looks decent. I'm just going to watch it.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, then you have people that you invite over, right? I mean, Netflix is trying to crack down on like password sharing. Streaming, it just feels, it's a mixed bag for sure. So as a man who loves going to the theater and enjoying that viewing experience, I would be immensely sad if Netflix were to cut down on that if they were to acquire DC through Warner Brothers.
Yeah. I mean, and everyone says, like, the corporate speak is telling us, like, yeah, we're going to keep the theater experience. Don't worry. I don't know how much I trust that, if I'm being honest.
Sure.
But yeah, it's pretty crazy. Kind of bringing up the inclusion of Supergirl and that last thought you had about saying kind of the next step in this DCU. I had a thought for you. Is the DCU at all hindered because the Suicide Squad is like a soft beginning to the universe, as opposed to Superman being like the hard end, as opposed to Superman being like the hard beginning, because there is Peacemaker included? Like, if Peacemaker wasn't a thing, this would not be a conversation we're having, right? But do you think that the DCU is hindered because of this kind of like sort of beginning to the universe, but not entirely. It's tricky.
I don't. In fact, I think it's honestly strengthened by it, and I'll tell you why. I think that enough people are into the original DCU or lost faith or somewhat, right? That there's roots, there's ties there. So the fact that they were almost trying to like grandfather it in through this Peacemaker tie-in just feels like a more subtle and nuanced transition rather than almost what I feel like would be cutting off a generation of fans to like kind of reboot the whole series. I feel like they've done that with a lot of things in the past. And I like the idea that they're kind of there are tie-ins from previous things, right? And there's kind of this whole build-in with Peacemaker. And I mean, we've talked about this, the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, even I guess you could argue the Creature Commandos show aren't all for like children, right? They have like more adult themes and cursing and, you know, a lot of violence, things like that. And I feel like for the more adult fans that are into that kind of stuff, it's not like essential, but it's fun and it's exciting. And I mean, we're gonna get into it. I freaking love the Suicide Squad. I love that they kept it all canonical and that there are tie-ins with the Peacemaker because we love that show. And I mean, yeah, if you're talking about a hard beginning to the universe, I guess you could call the Creature Commandos show that like the official. This is like, you know,
that's true.
We know what's happening.
Yeah, it was the first official project,
right?
So
but I feel like for I guess the plebes, Superman would be kind of like the big intro to that because he's the one that everybody knows and cares about, and that is absolutely a family-friendly film. So
I do really like your comment about not cutting off a generation of fans because for me, while it obviously, as if anyone's been following along, you know, there are lots of ups and downs in this DCEU. Overall, I was one of those people that was just kind of happy to see the superheroes I love on the big screen. And it was really fun for me and very exciting. So I am glad that there's kind of a soft tie-in, right? Like,
yeah.
Not all of my energy has been wasted enjoying this. I do wish that they had like a going back to the Peacemaker season 2 finale. I probably wouldn't be asking this question if that finale didn't seem to tie in so closely into Man of Tomorrow.
Right.
The tough thing is we don't know until Man of Tomorrow releases how much you actually have to know from Peacemaker because as it stands right now, it seems like Peacemaker season 2 is like low bar essential viewing.
Right. Like almost paramount to understanding what's going on.
Exactly. But we don't know if that's the case yet. So I guess, you know, hit us up in like a year and a half, 2 years. But that's what worries me, right? Is like, because Peacemaker becomes essential viewing, and then you have to watch Peacemaker season 1, which means you have to watch the Suicide Squad. But the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker season 1 are both clearly set in the previous universe.
Right. There's some heavy tie-ins to the previous universe. I'm with you there.
Which, again, I appreciate as a fan of the old universe. Again, I think it all just hinges on how much Man of Tomorrow really relies on.
Absolutely. And I mean, we won't be too affected. We've seen all of it.
Yeah.
But
that's the tough thing, right? We talked about this I think back when we were talking about it, which is like, we can't really understand the perspective of someone that hasn't seen the shows, how much they understand.
I think that's why I enjoy seeing these movies with friends who aren't really comic book fans.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of my favorite things about the Superman movie was seeing that with other people because I thoroughly enjoyed it through and through as a comic book fan, having watched all the other Superman movies. But then, sitting down with a friend who's never seen a Superman movie in their life, like they maybe watched Infinity War because that was like a big event, but they aren't into superheroes, right? So them like sitting there and thoroughly enjoying this as much as I did, maybe not as much, enjoying it, it's fun and it's an experience. So I'm excited to see if they can continue that or maybe build some hype for, once again, just kind of the plebes that aren't like crazy into it.
Absolutely. As it stands in this moment in time, it seems like there's a little bit for everyone. Again, it's just so much in its infancy, it's really hard to tell. Maybe Supergirl will give us some answers, right? Maybe they'll set up the government putting away superheroes a little bit, and it'll be like, okay, so you don't need to have seen Peacemaker, right?
Right.
But I don't know. We'll see.
It definitely seems like her story is going to be placed a lot more off-world. So
That's a
I don't
good
know how many
point.
tie-ins there will be there. But once
Maybe
again,
like a post-credit scene, but if they follow the Superman route, the post-credit scene won't actually matter to the plot.
I actually doubt that. I'm going to say that right now. I think it will matter.
Okay.
The reason that they gave Superman kind of that post-credit scene is, I feel, to match the wholesome vibe of Superman and to kind of not give you that like almost anxious feeling that like
now I have to, now I'm committed.
exactly, right? All this is going to tie in type of thing.
Okay. Because it's the first one is what you're saying. Like,
exactly.
Okay.
I feel like hers don't have to not matter. I wouldn't be disappointed, right, if they didn't end up, if they were just cutesy wholesome, but it's just less so her vibe, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I totally see that. So yeah, taking it all back to the Suicide Squad, I think a bit of backstory for this is really fun. For those of you that don't know, James Gunn was fired from directing Guardians of the Galaxy 3 because of an old social media post that he made that a lot of people found offensive, and Disney decided to fire him from Guardians 3 at the time.
I was not aware of that. Wow.
Yeah. So, and obviously that caused a lot of backlash from not only fans, but also the cast of Guardians of the Galaxy. Dave Bautista was probably the most outspoken, saying like, I'm not going to do it unless James Gunn is a part of it. And it's a really good thing that he ended up doing Guardians 3. But before that, Marvel had fired James Gunn, and then DC was like, hey, we'll pick him up, right? They pick him up. He's like, let's do a Suicide Squad movie, but like different, like my way. And that's how this came to be. Obviously a huge success in the box office, despite it being a 2021 release. So like good for them. And I don't think it, obviously because of like COVID stuff, it wasn't as big of a success as it could have been. But I think relative to COVID releases, it did pretty well. James Gunn and DC were kind of like, hey, let's just keep you on, right? And that's kind of how the whole DCEU started to become a thing. Meanwhile, Marvel was kind of like, okay, the fans are mad at us. The cast of Guardians is mad at us. Let's just bring them back for Guardians 3. So even though James Gunn was well into doing new DC stuff, they brought him back for Guardians 3.
Which I'm grateful for. It was an excellent film.
Absolutely. And it's such a good, you can tell when you watch it that it's just him being like, I just want to give these characters like a good conclusion before I leave, right? That way, just kind of a nice little cap off. Like anyone that looks at this trilogy can go like, yes, this was James Gunn's trilogy. He completed the story. Awesome. Right. And then they can move on to, if they decide to do more Guardians movies, like those three just feel James Gunny, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway, but point to all of this is I do feel like DC just giving James Gunn like a lot of control over his first film being The Suicide Squad really shows, and obviously was very popular with people. And we kind of have this movie to thank for a lot of the DC stuff we're getting today, like Superman.
Absolutely, which is kind of cool and almost like a happy accident that he ended up showing up in this universe, because it's likely that Marvel would have just kept him on board. They really like to stick with the directors that they like. They're really good at maintaining the status quo, I guess you could say.
For sure, which is not a bad thing. Like
no,
that,
if it works, it works.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I'm glad that he was able to kind of take the step over to the other side of like the comic book world, because he's done a lot for this here. And this being almost like his, I guess officially his directorial debut in the DCU, it knocked it out of the park. It was so excellent, and it completely stood out above and beyond kind of what had been released up until this point, right? Because chronologically, things weren't going too well.
No.
The DCEU was starting to like kind of take its downward toll. I mean, COVID happened. That was helping nothing.
Exactly.
But fans were starting to get kind of fed up with it. I mean, they kind of hit a wall with Marvel after Infinity War. DC was kind of hitting that same thing.
Yeah, I think because they didn't have another Justice League movie planned to happen, it makes it very hard to be like, oh, I just need to get through these movies because then I'll get to that big one, right?
Right.
I personally didn't love Thor Love and Thunder or Ant-Man Quantumania, but I watched them because I have that promise of there will be another Avengers movie that will hopefully make this worth it.
Right.
There was not really that for the DC.
No, it just felt like sequels without a purpose kind of thing. And for them to kind of bring it back with something that has such a strong sense of style and comedic tone, which isn't typical for the DC universe in general.
Well, I would argue, as we discussed, that recently in our watch through, I should say, they've been giving a lot of directors a lot of different creative control over like the style and the humor. Like Aquaman turned out the way it did because of its director, right?
Absolutely.
Birds of Prey, Shazam.
I think what I'm trying to say is this feels like the culmination of them finally figuring the kinks out. And obviously each director is going to have their own thing, but this is, in my opinion, the first one that I feel like felt so intensely put together. Like all the other ones had excellent elements and you could see their like typical director feels like kind of bleeding into it. But up until now, I mean, this is kind of the first one that I'm just sitting there blown away by how well thought out, how well the story flowed, the visuals, like it all just worked perfectly together. I need to stop loving on this movie so much. Like it's very good. But
to the bad stuff. No, I'm kidding. No, this movie deserves its praise. I think it's such a strong first step into this DC universe. I think another big hurdle this movie faced was it being, in the viewer's eyes, and essentially a sequel to Suicide Squad, which did not do well. A lot of people hated.
I have an explicit memory of you telling me to watch this movie and me just being like, what do you like? You're like, it's excellent. And I was just like, dude, like I watched it. It's not good. And you're like, which one? And I was like, what do you mean, which one? Right. I don't know if that was like for better or worse that they just named it The Suicide Squad instead of Suicide Squad, because I'm sure me amongst many other viewers were confused and were just like, wait, the bad one or the...
Yeah, I wonder if... See, the Suicide Squad is a lot more like superhero-y sounding, but they could have called it Task Force X. But
they could have, but I mean, this is what it is, right? This is what the comic books call it. I mean, this is kind of the thing that everybody knows it by. And once again, with the tie-ins with Waller, Margot Robbie, I mean, Captain Boomerang, it's a sequel. It is absolutely a sequel. So I get why they would want to kind of call it the same thing and maintain those ties. But it was, to say the least, a very pleasant surprise to be watching this and just like, oh, okay, this is what Suicide Squad should have been.
Right. I feel like they do a really good job of, you don't have to have seen the first one to get the gist of what the Suicide Squad is. I think some of my favorite parts of this movie are like the first 15 minutes.
Hey, I absolutely want to get into that because they set this up in like the crispest way possible, where if you know, then it's not like, you know, a drag because they're just like taking you through it all again. And if you don't know, it's perfectly explained, like in the context of it, right? You don't need like a title scroll or crazy exposition. It's really just like people just being like, yeah, I know the drill. And they like very quickly move you into like the team assembly and the first mission, which is like so much of the first Suicide Squad that it kind of drags.
Yeah, we discussed like that first half was just overladen with flashbacks to where it got really tough to really care about the current problem.
Yeah. I also want to get into kind of the genius behind the marketing of this movie. You mentioned this when we were kind of going through it, but they did a very similar thing that Thunderbolts did to a greater scale, I guess you could say, where they really were pushing, you know, Savant and like Pete Davidson as Blackguard and like all these characters that were immediately killed off in the beginning, but they were just like, this is the Suicide Squad.
Right. And I think they had like King Shark in the marketing and stuff like that, but they would also be like, have the beauty shots of like the squad walking at the very beginning in front of the American flag, right? Just, they made you think that this was the whole squad.
Absolutely, right? And my tie into Thunderbolts is right. They had Taskmaster as an absolute character in that movie, and she really wasn't.
No.
But it was funny. It was crazy funny seeing these people get slaughtered on the beach. It was like crazy. They made it so humorous that like this team that was like so put together were the ones, this is like our mission, and they absolutely just fall to pieces. And then we just find out they're a distraction.
Right. And I feel like it's clever because it shows the bad guys are dangerous, right? Even though they're like superpowered beings or villains, these guys can still kill them.
Right? It sets up our secondary antagonist, Waller, and showing
Exactly.
how heartless she is.
Exactly. And it also shows that the bombs do work, right? It's kind of like what the first guy to go in the original Suicide Squad was, right? Where he was there for kind of like 2 seconds and Slipknot just dies almost immediately. You don't
Right.
even get a backstory. But this case, I feel like it works better because it's like a whole sequence dedicated to explaining everything you need to know moving forward.
Absolutely. And I'll probably say it again, but the backstories in this are like immensely tasteful.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
not over the top. They always drive the story forward, and they work at like just the right moment to like, give you just a little taste of what this person is. James Gunn is a master at this, of like picking like almost entirely obscure characters and just kind of filling their he just establishes them. You're just forced to accept that they're a person. You aren't supposed to give like a long, drawn out backstory, but then they'll give you little bits and pieces, right? I mean, we were just talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. That is precisely what that movie is.
Oh, totally. Because I think before the movie, I had only seen them in an episode of Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then I saw that there was a movie and I was like, no way, what? Like,
And it's excellent, right?
Yeah.
It's so well done. So I think what I love about his style is he makes it easy. He subverts expectations, right? We're not sure what it is going into it. We kind of think we know, and then he kind of flips it on its head, and then you're almost on your toes, but like in a good way, not like a nervous, anxious way, but in like a anything can happen that makes the ending more exciting.
oh, for sure. And I do think that the opening credits of this are just a fun way to do them, right? You have a lot of very fluid camera shots that keep the action moving, and it's just showing like all of the people that are deceased from this mission. And then it kind of does that flashback of like, what, 3 days earlier or something like that.
Yep.
And we get to meet the real team. And
I just want to say real fast, their use of titles in this
yeah,
is immaculate. It's like world driven, right? Like it's typically in world, and it's just very textured and visually pleasing, and it's not easy to do.
no. It's very impressive, really fun. There is only one title card that I could notice that I was just like, was that entirely necessary? Maybe not. It was right after the like general like torches the birds and he's just like, we need to kill them all. And then it like cuts to the ground of them like walking and it just says like, kill the Suicide Squad or something like that. And I was like, okay, it's not like really a chapter, but
I'm with you there. Maybe not necessary, but once again, I feel like these tie-ins where each scene seems to like flow into the other so seamlessly. I mean, that just felt like a perfect way to go into the next scene, right? You're like reading this thing that's in the ground, and then suddenly Polka Dot Man falls into it, and then you're just thrust into it. Like it's
okay,
like relentlessly engaging, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I'll give you that.
I like that they introduce also the Peacemaker gang. I actually watched Peacemaker before I watched Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad, and so I was kind of delighted to see Economos and Harcourt. I mean, being like the kind of the mission operatives working under Waller, and it completely sets up, I mean, their purpose under Peacemaker. But it's kind of fun to see them in action because they are really dynamic characters.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun, soft intro, right? And we'll get into it, but it's clear that they have a lot more purpose at the very end of the movie.
Absolutely. But yeah, like you said, they kind of bring us into the actual gang.
Yeah, and they do really quick intros, which we discussed. We were kind of laughing at Katana's introduction in Suicide Squad, but as we discussed then, that's kind of how they do it here, and it just works better. And I think the only reason Katana's felt goofy was because everyone else had such elaborate flashbacks. But
it felt out of place.
But Katana was the way to go.
Yeah,
who knew?
Here it's who knew?
She had our backs.
But yeah, they bring us into like our protagonist, our main character. We get to meet Dubois or Bloodsport, and it is the ever incredible Idris Elba, who we love.
Idris Elba is awesome. I like him a lot. And people criticize this. I think it's a good move, but they basically are just like, he's Deadshot, right? He has the daughter. He's,
Pretty much.
he's the leader. But
Yep.
I think because it's not Deadshot. I mean, granted, it's a sequel, right? And they probably didn't want to get like Will Smith back for this whole thing
But
to
they don't.
retread the same story beats.
I think the strength of it here is they didn't really make it about his story. He's the main character. That's like, you can't really argue that. And he has the daughter. That's a tie-in. That's the reason he gets into this in the first place. But then he's just a character in the squad, right? They kept trying to tie it back in Suicide Squad to Will Smith and, the struggle around his daughter, a lot of like flashbacks, and it never really felt natural. But in this, I mean, you have two beats with his daughter, him like losing his mind with her, and then her getting to see her father saving the day. And that's like a healing moment. And
Right. It
that's kind of
bookends it, but it's not necessarily throughout.
No.
Fair. Okay.
No, like he is such a strong character, but it's not all about his backstory. In fact, he's kind of like the dark horse where you don't really know his backstory, and that's what makes him interesting. Anyways, he's excellent. And I love that they have the funny bit bringing in Peacemaker and how he and Bloodsport just do the exact same thing. And they kind of start their bit of a rivalry, which I think works well for the end of the movie, obviously. And then we get introduced to just the rest of the freaks, man.
Yeah, it's a good time. I like King Shark's a highlight of this movie. Ratcatcher 2 is really fun. Polka Dot Man, he doesn't have too much to do, but he is so fun in this movie.
They all feel very well written for their specific feels.
Totally. Yeah, the group dynamic is really strong. But one thing, I know it's a tiny thing, but I really wanted to highlight it because I thought it was so smooth, is when it cuts back to them walking on the beach, like team 2, the real team, right? And they're just kind of walking and they're like, oh yeah, like we were the decoy team. Cool. And then you see an explosion in the distance and they're like, what's that? And then it cuts to that explosion being like next to Harley. And then it just wraps up that like Harley gets captured. Rick Flag gets quote unquote captured. I thought that just transition was seamless. I loved it.
I'm with you there, right? I mean, for the fact that they kind of chose a lot of non-linear storytelling throughout moments of this movie, that was, I mean, just another seamless moment for them. That's a great word for it. And yeah, they really just show us that Harley and Rick Flag are still players in the movie, which is excellent and necessary.
For sure. And they do a good job of just taking the time to show essential character moments while it's not while it's not the most drawn out thing. Like it's not subtle and natural. It's kind of just there, but I think it works. Like when they're camping and King Shark tries to eat Ratcatcher 2 and there's a whole thing and Peacemakers and Tidy Whities, and it's just kind of this like dysfunctional group dynamic, right? And you have Bloodsport say like, I have a thing with rats. It's not the most natural sounding line, but it gets the point across.
It
and you're
works
over
in context.
With. Yeah.
I mean, I love that they're all just kind of like freaks in their own way, and it's kind of that classic band of misfits, but they kind of start us off with, I mean, Bloodsport just being, I mean, we're all gonna die, right? They're in the auditorium, and like it's clear that they aren't the most intelligent or cooperative gang, but yeah, I mean, you kind of start breaking down the weaknesses and maybe the strengths. For starting off on such a low note, I feel like they kind of build it back up, and I love this moment where it is an extra low note, right, of them kind of showing that they're not much of a team. But I mean, then we kind of have them start building themselves back up with Ratcatcher 2 kind of making friends with King Shark and kind of starting a bit of that unity. And then they take us into an excellent moment of rivalry, infiltrating the camp.
Yeah, they're told that it's like the bad guy, right? They're the government. They're holding Rick Flag captive. And you're right. You get this amazing scene where Bloodsport and Peacemaker are kind of showing off to each other, like their unique ways of killing people. And it's just goofy and childish. And oh my gosh. And then you get them finding Rick Flag. They find out that like they were resistance fighters. And they're just,
I love that line where she's just like, how'd you get here? Why did none of my men like alert me? And they were just like, oh, we didn't see anybody.
Yeah. And then I love like Rick Flag talking to like the resistance leader being like, I know, but, and it like cuts away and Peacemaker's like about to poke Bloodsport. He's like, what is this doing? He like smacks him away and then it goes back and he's like, they're children, but they'll be helpful.
No, it's great. It once again, and it sets up this kind of side story of, I guess the triumph of the rebellion, kind of trying to take back Corto Maltese, and kind of Flag trying to like balance both of these worlds, right?
For sure.
And then it once again just thrusts us very naturally into how they're trying to get into the city, which isn't just, brute forcing it. They are trying to sneak in there, and they have the tie-ins with the rebel army. So they make their way in. They meet Milton, who is kind of a key player. And they, relatively naturally make their way into the city. They find kind of the target who's been introduced at this point.
Yeah, so about that, I wanted to talk about there are a lot of villains in this movie. So
Yeah.
we talked about Amanda Waller is certainly an antagonist, despite her being in charge of our protagonist and saying she's doing the best thing for everyone. It's not the case, but she's kind of an antagonist. And then we have that scene where the Thinker, the General, and the President are like watching the footage of Starro. And that's like 4 villains right there, right? It's just, there's a lot here, but they balance it because I feel like once one takes the spotlight, it has to like be removed from the situation before another one takes the spotlight. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that's like the incredible flow of this story is the Thinker is established as maybe not a man of power, but somebody who can control the beast, right? So that's why he's their target. The president has power over the general, right? And he is kind of the, main antagonist in that sense until he's introduced to Harley. And they have this excellent sequence of like romance and a fun song, and they're just falling in love, and it's like childish and whimsical and fun. And then he kind of reveals that he's, kind of a dark man who wants to, just maintain power at whatever cost. And I love this small tie-in from the 2 previous movies, Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, where Harley Quinn just shoots him. And she's like, I made a promise to myself.
Yeah.
That right. Next time I try and fall in love. I mean, she's trying to get past this toxic relationship with the Joker.
For sure.
And this is a sign of that. But yeah, back to your point, her killing this man now leaves room for the general to take a place in the spotlight because, now the team is captured.
Yeah, the Harley aside does advance the plot. It also gives Harley screen time despite her not being part of the group, right?
Absolutely.
I'm with you. It pushes everything in the right direction.
It's excellent. We kind of get the gang splitting up a little bit, right? We have this aside with Harley. We have them at the bar trying to capture the Thinker, who, I mean, well played on makeup and costumes because, geez, he looks horrifying. And they killed it on that. But yeah, they try and capture him. It doesn't go great. The army's kind of onto them. So they end up kind of splitting the gang where Ratcatcher and Polka Dot Man try and take him to meet at a different location. And the 3 big boys end up captured by the government.
Right before we get into this, I do want to talk about on the bus ride to the party, Ratcatcher 2 kind of gives a little backstory on her dad and why she has the Ratcatcher device and she can control rats. That ties in later. I think that's a great little setup.
From a technical perspective, them doing like all her memories in the window while she's describing it was masterful.
I like that a lot. Yeah. And then you get Bloodsport talking about how his dad locked him in a chest with rats for 24 hours. So it's like you get to see more of his backstory. And then immediately after you get kind of just a party scene where you could have, there's a movie where they show up and the Thinker's there, they take him, and then the plot advances. But this movie takes the time to have the team kind of do team building, right? They dance, they have fun, they're partying together. And I feel like that's an essential beat to have before the 3rd act of the movie, right? To get us really on board with like, oh yeah, they're a team now.
Absolutely. I'll keep tying it back to Guardians of the Galaxy, but that's just a strength of James Gunn's is the people who absolutely should not be able to work together, slowly building that to like being the unstoppable force at the end of the movie kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, the teamwork works, right? Once, like you said, they have to split up and they trust each other to be like, yeah, you take the Thinker and go here. We'll meet up with you. There's trust there. And then Rick Flag, Peacemaker, and Bloodsport get arrested. They work in unison to get out of there. It's super easy, but they find out that Harley's held captive, which then brings us to our next section, which is, Operation Harley.
Yeah, which real fast, their action and set pieces in this are incredible.
They do a really good job.
It's so much fun, and the camera movement, like, it just great job putting you in the moment. So yeah, I mean, them escaping this truck looks excellent. Them switching the title, right, to now you got to change objective and, rescue the other member. Like, it seamless. I'll keep using that word, but yes, they gotta rescue Harley, and I love the setup here. I don't know. I kind of love just like the lack of cohesion around timeline, because you have Harley tied up and you have the team like rolling up. They're like starting to get all ready and prepped and like get into the building, get her out. And then they go back to Harley, and then they just have an entire sequence of her like getting out and like kicking ass.
It's
and
a lot of fun.
It's awesome. It's visually delightful. It goes along with the song "I'm Just a Gigolo" by Louis Prima, which is fun and whimsical.
It's fun, and like the animated flowers and birds add a good touch on. It's just like the cherry on top of the whole thing.
So good.
One thing I love is that she's really stoic the whole time. Like, she's really like serious and focused. Like, she's not giggling and smiling and twirling around. Like, it's kind of like psychopathic behavior. She's just like doing what she needs to do and like killing all these people without like a lot of expression. I don't know.
And I think that's like the delightful contrast, is this really happy and expressive song behind her. Yeah, like absolutely just murdering people and not being gleeful about it per se. But then you have like these animated flowers.
Yeah.
It's a great contrast.
Yeah.
And then her walking out and just seeing the gang coming to rescue her, which,
it's
like,
so awkward.
With the amount of time that all took, right? I mean, they probably should have been in by then, but I just love that she sees them. She's like, "What are you guys doing?" Right?
Yeah. I cannot get over like the way that Idris Elba kind of looks like hunched over when he's crossing the street, and like the wife beater, but with the Bloodsport helmet.
It's so funny. And then like trying to like climb the building, like in a very like struggle way, right? Like, he can absolutely do it, but it's not like a Spider-Man just, fly up there type deal. Or even like a Batman grappling gun. Like, he's working to get up there, and she just, just an aside, like, "What's up, guys?"
Yeah.
And I love her little reaction, just like, "You were coming to rescue me?" Right? Like, she's just so heartfelt that they would like even think about her in that way. I love that line, right? She's like, "I could go back in if you want to try."
Yeah.
Fun moment, and great introduction for Harley into the group. And then they just start grilling the Thinker to kind of get info and get him on their side to get into Jotunheim.
So yeah, I have a thing about the intro to Jotunheim. It bugged me when I first saw it. It bugs me a lot less now. But I want to talk about. I just want to get your thoughts. Maybe it'll lessen the blow. So they pull up in the van. It's kind of stormy. It's lightning a little bit. They get through the gates, and then once they exit the van, it's like pouring rain, right? Mm-hmm. And you get an awesome, walking shot. Milton comes up, which is a great comedic moment. And then they kill all of the guys, and you get the coolest shot ever of King Shark ripping the guy in half as the lightning strikes. And then, like, before they're in the door, I feel like it like stops raining. And it's like, don't get me wrong, I understand that, like, if you're in a tropical area, it really can rain that quickly and like be away that quickly. I don't know. It just felt like
a continuity perspective. It like took you out of the moment. You're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks really good, and it's very cinematic. So like, I
think that's the reason I want to give into it, is because it is intensely cinematic, right? It wouldn't look the same if it was pouring when they're driving up, right? You got to see them like crouched in the back, the Thinker like all nervous in the seat. And then, like the bright white background and just the pouring rain, intensely cinematic, right? That whole bit, the guards don't see them coming. It makes sense why they'd have all the rain. And it doesn't necessarily need to keep raining, because you need to see the guards arriving after the fact, or, the door shutting on all the people trying to get in. And I see where you're coming from.
I just think they could have had it raining when they pulled up. Like, when the scene started, they could have had it raining. And that would have made this whole thing go a lot easier, because it's a lot easier for me to believe when I'm watching a movie that it's raining and then it abruptly stops. Okay. But for it to go from not raining to not raining in the span of like 3 minutes, again, like I said, I know it's a real thing. I know that happens in real life. Doesn't mean it like doesn't take me out of the moment when I'm watching a movie.
It's funny, the small things that you're just like, really? That? But not like a, half shark, half human. Like,
Exactly. Totally right. Yeah.
that's fair. And yeah, after the rain stops, they they get us into Jotunheim and kind of start the plan of essentially blowing up Jotunheim. And we learn that there are like multiple operations going on as soon as they get into the basement.
The big reveal is that the U.S. government was part of Project Starfish, and they're there to kind of destroy the evidence. And Rick Flag is like, well, let's give it to the people, right? And Peacemaker has like the secondary objective of destroy that no matter what. And so him and Rick Flag get in a fight. Well, okay, bombs go off. We don't know why yet.
Another excellent moment of nonlinear storytelling.
Exactly. And so then, rubble is everywhere. Ratcatcher escapes from Starro. But then you get the Peacemaker Rick Flag fight. And I think it's obvious that they kind of had the setup for Peacemaker in mind when they did this. But I think even without Peacemaker, this fight is very well done, because if it's your first time watching, they do a very good job of making you not sure who's going to win.
Absolutely.
And it helps that they have a lot of fun camera angles. Like you said, you have like the reflection of the helmet, which is super awesome. And it's a very brutal fight. Like you can tell they're both just so tired by the end of it.
I think that's what I like about fights like these when they're not metahumans per se, is they are very physical. The hits like hurt that much more, even if they aren't as hard as like a Superman punch.
Totally. But yeah, Peacemaker kills Rick Flag, as you will be reminded in the future. And it's a good scene. I think it's a good line. The Peacemaker, what a joke.
Yeah. I like that you bring up the point that you're not sure who's going to win this battle, because you very much want Rick Flag to win this, right?
Yeah.
He's on the good side. I mean, the drive is an excellent plot device to kind of carry us through the team falling apart kind of in the end of this movie. And you really want you think he's going to win, right? He has the upper hand, and it is intensely devastating when Peacemaker kind of gets the upper hand, which, after 2 seasons of his show, I'm glad he did. But
Yeah, seriously.
I just remember in that moment being like blown away that was the case.
Yeah, totally. I do like once Peacemaker has Ratcatcher at gunpoint, then it cuts back to like the 8 minutes earlier. I think it works a lot better because you have this setup of unanswered questions like what happened with the bomb, where's the rest of the team.
Well, I mean, speaking of unanswered questions, just real fast, the reveal in the basement is horrifying.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Of all the Starro individuals. I mean, we finally get a look at Starro, the monster itself, and it's massive, right? And then just like the reveal of like the experiments that went on, right? Like the thinker is like actually really freaking evil.
Yeah, for sure.
I like the the drive for science or whatever. But yes, then they cut us to like I love, because it builds suspense in both scenes, right? Is that they're kind of cutting back and forth and like making it not giving us a solid conclusion before, going back to the first story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because now that we're watching this like flashback, you have that meta knowledge of, well, the bombs are supposed to go off and what's going to happen with Ratcatcher, right? And you get the great bit where they're just kind of walking, and then you get King Shark, dancing with some alien fish, which is really cute at the moment. And then you get Milton dies, and you get this great bit where Polka Dot's like really upset about it. And they're both kind of like, he was with us? Like, what?
Harley doesn't know who Milton is, right? Like, it's a funny bit. And once again, it's just very expressive of each of their characters, right?
Totally. A great moment. And then because Milton got shot, the explosives got, dropped to the floor. More guards show up. Polka Dot Man shoots his polka dots, which ignites the bombs. And now it all makes sense, right? King Shark gets attacked by the fish thingies, which is sad, and then he falls down, and then they shoot him relentlessly. Luckily he gets his revenge, but it's really sad at the moment when he's kind of like curled up and he like covers his face, and you're just like, no.
Right. And it's more just emotional damage at that point.
Totally.
But it makes you feel bad for the guy.
I know, that guy's a tank, though.
He's a tank. And yeah, I mean, speaking of tank, drops off this massive crumbling building, which, continues to drop. And I love the cinematics of this with all the water, like the tilting of the building, them trying to run and jump onto like the still intact section of the building. It just looks incredible.
It's good. I like that, it's not a complete horizontal slice. It's diagonal, so you get a sliding portion. And then you get Bloodsport crashing through the several layers, which is a very funny thing. And then he ends up in front of Peacemaker. And it's a really good moment of like, you see Bloodsport kind of putting 2 and 2 together of like, what is going on here? And then he shoots. And then you get the great callback to the beginning where Bloodsport has a smaller bullet. So it goes inside of Peacemaker's bullet and kills him, or heavily injures him.
It takes him out for the moment.
Which, okay. Rewatching this, how on earth did Peacemaker survive? Because not only was he shot in the neck, which like, sure, but Starro like exploded out of that building.
Absolutely. And it was probably like many, many, many hours before anybody found him.
Right. I don't know, man. I'm willing to accept it, but I just had that thought of like, wait a second. No, I'm still okay. Don't worry. This isn't like the rain. I'm willing to let this slide. But yeah, then you get the explanation of, Bloodsport with the hard drive, and they kind of meet up, and then they're like, well, Starro's coming. Let's get out of here. They get out of the building. They're running away. Starro breaks out, and you get this really fun, my favorite title card, which is Suicide Squad versus Starro the Conqueror. And it just sets up the very final battle of the movie really well. You get Starro taking over a lot of people, and it's just a fun... I mean, they kind of get the excuse of getting to kill as many people as they want because Thinker says, like, oh, yeah, their corpse is underneath the scars. So they get a nice cop-out, getting the faceless henchman, right?
Absolutely.
To destroy.
And I think this is like a great final decision for the team because, Starro comes out, starts wrecking things, and finally, there were communications cut off with Waller. She gets back on with them, and it's just like, hey, your objective is complete, right? You buried the evidence, and you can leave. And they start walking away because they know they got a bomb in their neck. But Bloodsport kind of has like completes his character arc where he doesn't necessarily want to be just like told to do what he should do anymore, right? Like he's okay to like have a heart, right? He's not just the cold serial killer that they've made him out to be. And he decides that, we need to take this thing down. We can't just, allow Corto Maltese to just be absolutely wrecked by this thing. So he turns around and the rest of the team goes to follow. I mean, Ratcatcher has her moment where she's very excited and happy that he has a heart. She's been kind of almost like the liberal mindset throughout this where she's like, have a heart, right? These people matter.
And you get that intercut between Waller and the squad, like Waller just freaking out, and you're like, she's gonna blow him up, and then she gets knocked out. A side note, this works like a gajillion times better than Will Smith leaving the bar in Suicide Squad, deciding, and everyone like following him.
Absolutely.
Just the contrast is just night and day. I do feel like this battle, everyone gets like their time to shine, which is a lot of fun, right? You get King Shark, you kind of get like a Hulk smash moment where he's just like, King Shark, go nom nom, right? And then he goes and just starts like ripping apart Starro. And the thing is I feel like King Shark's such a fun character by himself that you don't need him to like land the finishing blow, right? So it's okay to just kind of have him there. You get Polka Dot Man shredding the legs of Starro, and
who he imagines to be his mom, which is a really fun side bit.
That is such a good just through line through everything, right?
He ends up dying. Bloodsport kind of like loses all of his gear. Things are starting to look kind of dim for the gang, and Ratcatcher kind of comes to the rescue and calls all of the rats, which are a lot. And Dubois kind of starts losing his mind because he's not a fan of those. But
completely covered. You'd think like she's not covered. You'd think she could have told him to go around. Like, come on.
she just some exposure therapy.
But it is a nice visual to have her like comforting him, like hand on the back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is the moment where like all the flashbacks in this entire movie like just felt so intensely proper because they just nailed it with this one right here where with her dad just kind of like watching like the big city that they live in and her just asking him like, why rats? And him just being like, I mean, if they can find a way to live and, exist and love in this world, then so can we.
And dude, the tie-in of just like rats being considered like the lowest form of life, and they have zero purpose, and them having a purpose of like literally killing Starro for them.
It is such an excellent tie-in. You're so right,
It's
right?
so
The
good, 'cause
themes
you have
are
this-
all there.
Oh yeah, and you have the Suicide Squad, which you're seeing as like the lowest, of life forms in humanity, but they save the day, and such a good tie-in.
It's great. And Harley gets her tie-in with the javelin, using it to, officially take out Starro. And you get kind of like almost like a moment of sympathy for Starro because as he's about to die, I mean, one of his henchmen lifts up, it was the general, and he's just all like, I was happy in space just gazing at the stars.
Totally. And honestly, the only like evil thing Starro does is just saying he wants to take over the city.
Right. Which, like, understandable. He's been held
Totally.
captive for 30 years and tortured. I mean, of course, right?
Yeah.
I feel like if I were a giant starfish, I would do quite the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's an excellent character canonically. I mean, in all the stories, I mean, he plays a great role in the DC universe. But yeah, there was like a little moment where you're like, "Aw," for him.
I know, right? One thing that happens while this is all going on is you kind of have the resistance fighters taking over the government, right? They kill all of the government leaders. My opinion is kind of a weak side plot, but they needed to have it. And I feel like for what it is, it works. It's nothing like too exciting. Honestly, the best part of the whole thing is them like on the TV later when the resistance leader is like, we're going to, have a democratic election. It's going to be amazing. And like, that's a good thing, right? I like that part.
Absolutely. And it's a great little tie-in. It's not like the main story or anything like that, but it leads to kind of that heart-to-heart moment that Dubois' daughter gets to have from across the country, right? Where she kind of sees what's happening on the TV. They're talking about Corto Maltese just being freed and everything like that. And, they show the shot of her father like fighting the thing. And she's like, that's my dad. And it's excellent. It's I feel like enough to like give him kind of the gravitational emotional pull of the character that he is, but without like really ramming it down your throat like they did with Will Smith and Deadshot.
Yeah. I think the last part of this movie is essential, like for liking the movie, where they get on the helicopter and they're being sent away. And it's just that quiet moment. Everyone's just kind of there, like worn out, obviously have been through a lot, and they're just tired. I think that's what makes it feel so real. And then you have the rat just hanging out on Bloodsport's leg, and he's okay with it. And I think that scene is like essential viewing for this whole thing.
I got goosebumps with you talking about that right there. It really is just the perfect cherry on top, right? Nanawe just sitting there, just like beat, bloodied, bruised, and Ratcatcher like lightly resting on him. Harley Quinn is cooked, sitting next to Bloodsport, who's really just trying to be okay with this like menace on his leg. And I love that they all can kind of rest now because they have a sense of freedom, because he used the drive as, I mean, the excellent plot device that it is, as leverage against Amanda Waller to be like, hey, like, you got to let us go. You can't kill us, and we won't release your dirty secrets. And I feel like it's kind of a happier ending, because typically with the Suicide Squad, the idea is
they just go back to jail.
They just go back to jail for perhaps-ably less time, right? And I like the idea that they kind of get to be free, because it's been proven that each of them in their own way are kind of a pretty decent person, right?
For sure. And then, yeah, we get title, Weasel's still alive, which is just funny at the moment, but it actually does tie into Creature Commandos, which is excellent. Geez, that was a fun show.
Absolutely.
But yeah, then the post-credit scene is Economos and Hardcore in the hospital, like oh yeah, Peacemaker is unconscious, but like he's alive and they're nursing him back to health. And they're like, why do you need him? And they're like, to save the world. And it's interesting because this movie, by the end, it frames Peacemaker as a villain. Like he is a villain in this movie.
Absolutely.
He's a surprise villain, but a villain nonetheless. And to them, just them knowing that they're going to have a show about him and try and flip him as a good guy is really interesting in hindsight. But
in hindsight, absolutely. And I mean, seeing how they did it, it works. It's crazy that it works, but it does. I mean, he's kind of just a wholesome idiot who's trying to do right by what he believes is right. And I think the idea that they kind of have him going against his morals in the show works well. But he is arguably, like, almost factually the villain at the end of this movie. It's like, it's kind of that crazy, like, villain plot twist of just like, oh, but he didn't die. He'll be back in the next show or whatever. And that's not the case for him.
well, and I think this movie, while it does show a little bit of that in the first season of Peacemaker, this movie kind of sets the tone of this is Peacemaker's flawed ideology that his dad gave him that he is going to break away from in the show, right? Like this is kind of the like base starting line of, okay, you've seen Peacemaker, his way of doing things isn't the best. How did that happen? And breaking away from that is like a true achievement, right?
Absolutely. So fun setup, and I feel like this movie has like a lot of tie-ins to other things. So I kind of get your concern about everything else needing to be canonical, or his whole claim about you not having to see everything else. I mean, this movie perfectly sets up Weasel and Rick Flag Sr. and Amanda Waller in the Creature Commandos show. It sets up the Peacemaker show completely. I mean, it all ties in. So the idea that it wouldn't matter that you'd seen everything else feels silly almost. But once again, I love blindly trusting James Gunn. He seems to know what he's doing.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's the Suicide Squad. It's a great movie. It's so fun. And to come this late in the DCEU's life is a treat. Our next movie that we're going to watch before we take a week off for the holidays is Black Adam. There's a lot of interesting stuff surrounding this movie, like similar to the James Gunn backstory of how he got onto this, and also the like definitely not to the extent of like the Justice League, but there's just a lot that went into this movie because they were really hoping this would be like their Hail Mary of like, oh, the Suicide Squad is popular. Let's absolutely bring people back with Black Adam, and then just we're back on track. And this movie did not do very well, and we will discuss next week why that is the case. But yeah, we'll talk more about that next week.
We'll catch you next time.